A very good morning, children. How are you all? I hope you are all doing fine. So I hope that you watched the last video which I did on the ecosystems and habitat, right? If you have not watched the introduction, so please go back, watch the video and come back, so that will be really useful to you, so that you can go ahead with the next sessions. And also I hope you all watch the video and come to this session. So the name of the unit we are dealing with is adaptations to different environments, or adaptation to different ecosystems. So already we have seen what an ecosystem is. Already we have seen what a habitat is, right? So that's the reason why I asked you to go back to the previous video and watch the terms and all and the explanation and come back to this video. So here each and every organism, it has its own habitat, right? It has its own habitat, right? And they tend to live in that particular habitats. So if you take ourselves, right, if you take the human beings and all, we have land ecosystem, right? And the place where you are living is your habitat, right? And all the animals, we live along with the animals and all, and so many animals are there along with us, and all we all live in the terrestrial habitat or terrestrial ecosystem or land ecosystem. Now you cannot go and live in the water. Can you go and live in the water? No, we cannot go and live in the water, because our body doesn't suit the to survive in the water. So we have our own ecosystem, right? The same way, if you take a fish and all, and if you keep on the land, so it cannot live. And even if you bring that also, you have to put in an aquarium. Only then it can survive. And that too, if you bring a sea, the fish which is surviving in the sea, and you bring it to the fresh water, it will die, because it is not it does not live in the freshwater ecosystem. In the same way, if you take a fish which is living in the fresh water, you cannot put it in the sea water, it will die. See, that is the reason why we say that all the animals will have their own habitats, right? They live in their particular ecosystems which suits them, which suits to their bodies, which suits so that they can survive in that particular adverse conditions. So here now, for example, here so my point of telling is here, every organism has its own suitable environment. If the environment doesn't suit that particular animal may die, right? So now, for example, what we can take here is, there are some plants which are called as knees. You can say mangroves. Okay, there are some trees which are called as the mangroves. Basically, these mangroves will grow in the seashores or the banks of the rivers and all. Okay, now just assume that these are the mangroves. These are the mangroves, and now these mangroves, they are growing like this, and suddenly what happened? That they got immersed. The roots completely got immersed in the water. Okay. Now, just assume that these are some other plants or different plants. If they get immersed in the water like this, now there are chances that they will die, because roots has to respire. Roots has to respire. See, when leaves are there, they respire along with the help of the stomata, and the stems and all, they will help. They will respire with the help of the lenticles. Whereas the roots also, they have to respire, and they respire with the root hairs. Okay, now these plants, usually our plants, they cannot directly take the oxygen from the water, right? They don't have that kind of system to take the oxygen from the water. So if the plants are completely immersed in the water, what happens is, the root hairs will not be able to respire, and ultimately that will lead to the death of the tree. So that is how the trees will respire. And now, if you take these plants as mangroves, which are now completely submerged in the water, now these root hairs are not able to take the air or the oxygen which is present in the atmosphere. Now, how these plants will survive? How these trees will survive? So that is the $1 million question now. So if they are completely submerged in the water, if they are staying in the seashores and the bank of the rivers and all, if they are completely submerged with the mud and also the water and also, how they will survive? The root hairs cannot breathe the oxygen here. So what happens here is, they have developed some aerial roots like this. From the branches, from this main trunk, they have developed some aerial roots, and these are the aerial roots which are respiring now. These are also called as the respiring roots. Okay, aerial roots or else you can call them as respiring roots, and these respiring roots are called as knees. So now these knees are having two kinds of functions here. One is they are giving support to the plant. Okay, they are giving support to the plant. At the same time, they are also helping in the respiration process. They are helping in the respiration process. So these are the two ways how the knees are, like, they are helping the mangroves. Now here you can see that this is a kind of adjustment, right? That means this particular plant is adapting to that environment with the help of the knees. So if there are no knees, or if there are no aerial roots or respiring roots and all, the plant will die. So if it has to stay even in that adverse conditions also, if it has to stay in that completely different conditions to survive themselves, they are adapting to that environment. So it cannot walk to some other place and go and plant it somewhere else, right, by itself. So it has to stay in that water. It has to stay in the submerged water, right? The roots has to be submerged like that. So basically what happens is, so to survive in these adverse conditions, which are not suitable for these plants, they have produced the aerial roots, or you can also call them as the knees. So they are giving them support. At the same time, they are helping in the respiration. So that is how these plants are adjusting themselves to their surroundings. So it's a new environment, so they have to adjust. Okay. Now there are so many children who come from different schools, right, to our school, right? The atmosphere in that school is different. The atmosphere in our school is completely different. So it takes some time for them to adjust, right? But once, if they have to stay here, definitely what they will do, they will adapt themselves to this atmosphere. Even our human beings also, if you go to some other places, for example, if you go to US, okay, it's very, very cool out there in the winter season. So here we don't have such kind of temperature here, right? Even if you go to Delhi also, it's very, very cool here. Sometimes it goes into minus degrees also. So you have to make your body in such a way that it suits that particular temperature, isn't it? So if you have to live there permanently, you have to adapt yourself. You have to adjust yourself to that particular temperature. So this is the major point of this lesson, right? Adaptations to different ecosystems. In each and every ecosystem, there are different kinds of organisms, right? They, before their adjustment, they have some, they were different, right? But now, if they have come to that ecosystem, they have to adjust and they have to adapt to that particular environment. So we are going to see several examples which are based on the same, right? For example, let me tell you this example first. So what we'll do here is, we'll take an aloe vera plant and we'll take a balsam plant here, right? Aloe vera and balsam plants here. Now, this aloe vera plant, we'll try to plant it in a pot here. And also a balsam plant, we'll take a pot and plant it here, right? So this is the aloe vera. So this is a balsam plant. Okay. So now what we'll do is, we'll only put 2 spoons of water every day. We are only giving this plant 2 spoons of water every day. So even to the balsam plant also, what we'll do is, we'll only give 2 spoons of water every day. So if you are going and giving this 2 spoons of water every day, after 1 week or 2 weeks and all, like maximum 1 week, so you will see that this balsam plant will dry up. It will completely dry up. But whereas you can see that this plant is still surviving. It is still surviving. Why this plant is surviving and why this plant died? Because these plants are the desert plants. These are plants called as the desert plants, and these are also called as the xerophytes. They belong to the xerophytes. So here these xerophytes or the desert plants are able to live in these adverse conditions also. That means if you're only putting some 2 spoons of water every day, still they are living. The reason is because these plants, what they will do, they will take this water and the water will be transpirate, like no, they will undergo transpiration. The water will go outside with the help of the process which is called as the transpiration through stomata. So through stomata, the water will be leaving this plant. But whereas these plants, as they know that this is an adverse condition, they are getting only very less amount of water. What they will do is they will store in the body, and also their body is also made up like covered with a kind of waxy material which will not allow the water to go outside. The stomata will be completely closed, and they will what they will do is they will store the water for the future use. When the see if you go to the desert plants or deserts also, the water which is in the deserts, like the rainfall in the desert is absolutely low. There is no water in the desert region. So whenever they get the rainfall, what they have to do is they have to save that water. So if they don't save that water, next rainfall will be after many days. Till then, they have to survive. They have to survive. So that is how these xerophytes have they adapted themselves to live in this desert ecosystem. They have adapted to live in this particular desert ecosystem. So if they have not adapted themselves, in such a way that they have reduced, listen this one, they have reduced their leaves to spines, right? A very narrow kind of leaves and all, so which will not allow much water to go outside. So that is how they are these kind of adaptations will help them to stay alive, survive even in the adverse conditions also. So this is not, it is not allowing the transpirations to occur. It is not allowing the water to go out in the form of transpiration. Okay, or moreover, it is storing the water for the future use. So that is how these plants are they are saving themselves from the death. Okay, so the stems which they have are the succulent stems. Succulent stems which will store the water. And there are some other plants also like the opuntia, cactus and all. Like even these plants also, they also store the water in themselves. And moreover, if you see these plants and all, they will have spines on them. They have thorns on them. So if you see a cactus plants also, they have some spines kind of structures on them, which will not allow the other animals or the other human beings to come and take this out. So they will save themselves from this particular invention of the other organisms. So they develop the thorns, and also they store the water. They save the water for the future use. So that is how they started adapting to different environments. Okay, so even in the very hot seasons also, even in the extremely hot summer seasons also, where there is scorching heat also, they are able to survive. How they are able to survive? The reason is very simple, that they have adapted to stay in that particular environment. They have adapted themselves so that they can survive in that adverse conditions also. So there are some other plants, like they are not plants exactly, they are plants but they don't look like plants. Okay, a small cut will be seen here, and they are in different colors which look like stones. They are called as the pebble plants. They are called as the pebble plants. Even these plants are also able to store the water inside them, and also as they look like some kind of stones and all, like people also will feel that these are some kind of stones and they will not touch them. So that is how pebble plants, which are in the desert regions also, they are able to store water, and also they are able to survive in that particular even very extremely hot environments. Nowadays what happened here is the cactus and the opuntia plants and all like xerophytes, they are become the ornamental plants. Ornamental plants. Now these are all given as gifts. And now they are not in the deserts, but they are in our houses, but still they show the same kind of nature here, because they already got adapted to that situation. So that's why, even though they are given as gifts and all, they are given, they are in our gardens like an ornamental plants, but still they have the same nature and all. That is nothing but the storage of the water. They will not allow the water to transpire. They will not allow the transpiration process at all. Even though if there is any scarcity of water also, they can survive for a long time. So by this we come to the end of the today's session, that is adaptations of plants in different adverse conditions. So tomorrow we'll see the adaptations of the different animals in the diverse conditions. Okay children, see you until then. Have a great day. God bless you.